was about to start there. We've still got a few people just joining now. So, but okay, right, let's get going then. So welcome. Good afternoon. Just afternoon in the UK, or good morning, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to today's webinar. It's covering Snowflake ML and Cortex, and we'll go into it a little bit more. So let's get started. So you are joined today by myself, Lee Connor, Technical Director of Catalyst BI, and Ben. Ben, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Lee. Hi, everyone. I'm Ben Johnson, data scientist at Catalyst. I've been working at Catalyst for around 7 years now across the BI, data science, and infrastructure areas.
Thanks, Ben. Great. Technical Director, as I've already said, so I've been in the data space for 20-something years, very much in the data warehousing, database space for pretty much most of that time. So welcome. So let's go through the agenda. We're going to cover the high-level Snowflake platform. So if you guys are familiar with the Snowflake platform, that's great. If not, we'll cover that before we start. And then we're going to cover two things, really. We're going to do predictive AI. So how do we take structured data and predict it? And then generative AI in Snowflake Cortex. So how do we take unstructured data? And then we'll finish by some question and answers. If you do have any questions in the meantime, just feel free to put them into the chat panel. And Ben is monitoring that. Hopefully, Ben, are you?
I am. Yeah.
Good. We'll answer those on the fly and we'll summarize at the end. So just fire those in as and when, and we'll answer them as we go. And hopefully I'll have enough time at the end to answer them all. Great. So just before we jump into that, we'll just go through who we are. So Catalyst BI. We do three things. We do data management, data analytics, and data science. This is our strap line. Really, it's about essentially unlocking your data and bringing value by bringing people and your data together, but bringing value to you as an organization. And how we do that really is by doing three different things. So we mentioned data management, data analytics, data science, of how we bring data in, integrate, store it in a warehouse or the lake, provide insights and actionable intelligence on the back of that, and then look at the science of that. So how do we predict and how do we do generative science? Okay. First, I'm assuming that everybody on the call, but let's not make assumptions. It knows what traditional versus generative AI is. It's important just to quickly recap that. So from the traditional AI, it's using structured data, and from generative AI, it's essentially synthesizing data, so it's creating new content. So your ChatGPTs, the like, I'm sure you're all familiar with. But it's worth making sure that they're both still important. They're both massively important in the AI world. So it's not. Be careful getting caught up in the hype of generative, which has obviously come in as strong over the last 2 years with ChatGPT.
Sorry, Lee, just 2 seconds. I think some people are having trouble seeing your screen.
Oh, right. Okay. Right. Let's just do a share again. Sorry about that. Why is it not sharing? Let me stop sharing and do it again. There's always a it's not letting me share again. Okay, let's go again. Let's do it again. Right. Can we see that now?
Yeah, that's better, Lee.
That's excellent. Okay, super. Well, let's just quickly do that again. So there's myself and Ben. This is the agenda. We're going to do predictive and generative. And we unlock all your data to get value from it. We do data management, data analytics, and data science using those vendors that you can see. And there is traditional as well as generative AI. So using predictive as well as using generative. But as I was saying there, both are massively important, and we'll cover those both today. But let's get into the Snowflake platform. The Snowflake platform is quite large. For you guys who know, you probably think the Snowflake is just a data warehouse in the cloud, right? Simple as that. It might be a lake as well. Well, actually, it's both. And the multiple ways to consume that. So you can either do the Snowflake SaaS, or you can bring it in. You can actually host it yourself in your own Google, your own AWS, and your own Amazon Azure. But in essence, Snowflake is a little bit more than that. So obviously you're looking at different sources of data. So on the left-hand side, you're looking at databases, application data, third-party data, weblog data, IoT data, stream data, all comes into the data warehouse and the lake. But actually, there's some additional features and functions that you may not be useful or understand on that one. And one of those new ones is the Unistore. So the Unistore uses it's essentially a way to take transactional data storing and your analytical data at the same time, which is quite unique. So you've got data engineering, so your pipelines, you've got collaboration. So how do you share data once you've got it into SharePoint with two external parties as well as internal parties, very, very quickly and easily. And then applications. So you can actually host applications within Snowflake, and they've actually got a marketplace that you can buy those applications off the shelf, and it uses Snowflake to host them, do security, etc., etc. And then finally, in the area that we're covering today is the AI and ML. So that kind of purple zone there. So if we look at that, we've in essence got 4 different areas on AI and ML. We've got Copilot, so just like you've probably heard of Copilot and Microsoft and the like, that allows you to create SQL and SQL queries from just natural language. It really helps your development. You've got Document AI, so that's taking unstructured data, so your standard forms. So if you're taking doctor's forms or medical forms or analytical forms, written or non-written, it's processing those into a structured data set. And then what we're going to cover today really is the ML. So the Snowflake ML, which is the predictive, as well as the Cortex, which is the generative element. And ultimately, if you look on the right-hand side, all of these features within Snowflake are about giving you reporting, ad hoc analysis, real-time analysis, and more importantly, and latter is the data monetization. So once you've stored your data, you've quality checked it, and you've potentially done some predictive on it, wouldn't it be great if you could then potentially resell that data to external bodies or even within your group? So we are just talking about ML, or Snowflake ML and Cortex today. So let's just look at that and understand a little bit more about that. So you develop those apps in Studio, what they call Studio, which you'll see today, Notebooks and Streamlit, broken it down by the Snowflake ML and Cortex AI. We'll just call them ML and Cortex from now on. And then they're all contained with an AI infrastructure. So the infrastructure itself, so the compute power, the GPUs as they're called, or even the governance, the security along that, alongside that is all taken care for you in the platform. So you don't have to worry about any of that. Well, ultimately, what that means is it's easy to develop, efficient to develop and deploy, and lowers your operational cost, and it's trusted as well. So you've got the security governance for that. So if we look at more, we'll look at first of the Snowflake ML. So let's look at ML, and we'll just do this high-level architecture diagram. So in essence, we are going to show you a demo in a second or two, but it's about taking that data, whether it be batched or streamed. It's about using the tools on the top there. You can see the Studio, the Snowflake notebooks, and any extended IDE. In essence, to produce those dashboards, applications, or indeed integrate using APIs into those predictions. But you do have that ML, the development environment. So you have functions, you have feature engineering, model training, and from the ML ops perspective, you've got a feature store, registry, explainability, and they're all underpinned by it just working for you using containers, using warehouses, etc. So some of those features and functions you're not familiar with, but I think that the takeaway from this is that you don't need to be a data science. You don't need to be a Ben who knows data science in and out. You can still utilize the kind of off-the-shelf tools, and if you're able and know SQL, then you can get in bed with this pretty quick. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into the demo, because I think that's where people find this really interesting. So the scenario. Okay, so this is ML, so that we're trying to predict the future here. And the scenario here is that I've got some HR data within my organization. It's already sat within Snowflake, so I don't have to bring it in. And I want to identify the potential levers so I can take action. We've had one or two problems lately, and we've got a few too many levers. So what I want to do is identify those levers as soon as I can and take action. So let's switch to the view. So this is the demo, and this is the Snowflake view. If you guys have not seen this before or used any database tools before, this should look familiar. For anyone else, it's a way to interact with your Snowflake data at a very, very GUI level. So we've got a database. We've got it called AI demo, and then we've got some tables in here. Okay, and what I've got some tests and I've got some training data. Okay, so I'm going to use this training data to start off with, and if I just look at the preview, very, very simple data. I've got some employee data in there, IDs, so and then maybe last satisfaction survey that was done, how many hours they're working, which department they're in, and how many projects they're working on, etc., etc. Okay, I can visualize that data, and I have been using a Click dashboard. So if we just take a quick look at that, what I can see here is, if I just reconnect, because it has disconnected. What I can see here is the amount of data that I'm looking at. So I'm looking at about 15,000 employees. We've had over the time nearly 2,500 resign, which is about 15% or 15.7%. So I can look at that data and analyze it, but it really, I want to be able to predict where those individuals are going to leave. So very simple. What I want to do is I want to start with my training data, and then I've got some test data, so additional data over the top of test data over the training data in order to test my predictions and see how accurate they are. Okay, so let's start that. Very graphically, I've got another window here. You can see I start from the left-hand side and I go to AI and ML, and I look at the studio. I can do forecasting, anomaly detection, and classification. If I don't know which one to go to, I can read the manual, I suppose, but they've got a lot of services online, or I can talk to the likes of us and Ben to look at. I know I need to do a classification experiment in this instance. Then if I wanted to know a little bit more about which one to choose, where would I go?
So on the Snowflake Docs website, there's a wealth of resources on there, both technical and non-technical. There's also the Snowflake Quick Starts website, which is really, really powerful and has tons of reusable code templates that you can very quickly integrate into your own use case, and it will save you days and days of time.
Okay, cool. Well, that's good to know. But because this is a demo, I know it's a classification because I've got some structured data. So I'm just going to create that classification. So I'm going to give this a model name. So I can call this, HR levers, for example, as the model. I need to give it some compute. So I'm just going to fire it at compute. And then that's it. Let's go. As simple as that. I then choose my training data. So let's point it to the database, AI demo schema, and then point it at my training information. Simple as that. It gives me a preview. I go next, and then I choose the target. So this is essentially what I want to predict. So depending on the model type, whether it's classification, this could be a number. In this instance, it's just a binary, have they resigned or not. So what it's going to do is going to take the historic information now and try to create a pattern from all the columns that I've given, the data that I've given it. Okay, if I go next, and now it's saying I want the data to classify. So essentially, it's asking for some test data to compare against it. So again, I've got this test data already pre-canned, and what that test data is essentially, it's a holdback. So I've held back around about 20% of my data for all of my 15,000 employees just to test the model to see how accurate it is. Okay, and simply I'll go next, give it a name. So this is a name for my table I'm going to create. So I'm just going to call that also HR levers. So it will create a table for me in the chosen database, so it can drop the results in there for me. So I'm just going to hit done. What that does now is it creates the script. And for anyone who's familiar with SQL or coding, this will look very similar or very familiar, shall I say. So I'm just going to execute that while we explain that, because it does take a while to run, as in a few seconds actually. But as we go through this, you can see the sections that it's running, and you can see it's actually not that a lot of code. So you can see now it's doing the classifications. It's actually trying to find the correct model for us, and now it's doing the training of that model. It's done already, and now it's starting to essentially create the predictions table. So, I suppose, Ben, what's the advantage of doing this over? We can see the code, but what's the advantage of doing this over an additional product that you just thought next?
Yeah, so rather than it just hiding all of the detail in the background for you and spouting out the results, the benefit of it putting it all into this SQL worksheet is it's fully customizable. So it's giving you a template, really. If there's any kind of data pre-processing or post-processing steps that you'd want to add, you can do that. You'll see at the bottom there, it's also given us some handy code snippets that we could show just to look at the evaluation metrics for the model, look at the confusion matrix of the predictions, and also just to analyze the feature importance and things like that.
Wow, and it's actually finished with the feature importance as well, which if you don't know what this is, it shows you how important each of those columns in essence is, called features, and the importance of those, the relative score against those. So that's quite useful for when you want to have explainability of why those predictions have come back. So let's have a look at that then. Let's have a look at the table. So if we go back and refresh that, you can now see it's created a table. I can look at that table and I can see it's combined my training data, my test data together, and essentially created a new column called predictions, which is, in essence, there's a lot of information there, but you can see that there's a probability, and it's essentially just giving me a probability on each one of those from 0 to 1, you think of those as a percentage. So let's have a look back at my dashboard now, and now I can reload my dashboard, but I've got a secondary dashboard now which will show my predictions. So my predictions are now complete over my 15,000 employees, and I can see predicted to leave is, well, it's 23%. So, but now I can start looking at my patterns. So it took all of that historic data and started to look at all of those patterns based off the limited information I've given it. So how long have they been with the business? What is their satisfaction score? How many projects? How many hours they've done? And I've just pulled out a couple of examples on the bottom here of, well, the satisfaction score versus the percentage to leave. So the satisfaction score is in the dots, and then how many projects they're running on. On the right-hand side here, you can see by mapping the prediction to leave, so the percentage of the likelihood of potentially leaving the business versus their performance rating, I can quite quickly see my outliers or my problem people. And the irony is, it's in my people department, so my HR department. That's the highest threshold. So if I just select that and filter that down, I can then start doing my analytics of understanding, well, within the people department, I've nearly got 30% of people that are going to leave. So I've got a real problem here. And the satisfaction score is not too bad, actually, when we zoom in. But you can see here, if I show the amount of projects, I've got about an 8% likelihood of people doing 7 projects or more are going to leave. So I can now start to have a conversation with the HR director, the HR manager, about reducing potentially their workload, because we potentially got a problem here. So I can take action off that. So that concludes the demo for the AutoML. So if I just come back to the presentation here, what essentially we've just seen there is we've seen Snowflake train the model. It's then tested the model. We've run the model to identify the probability and stored that back into Snowflake, and it's generated that all automatically. And then I've used a technology called Click to create a dashboard and look at those live predictions. So, but I suppose one of the questions that we get asked all the time, and I'll preempt this, I'm sure it's one of the questions on your lips, would be, well, what happens if I don't want that model? Is there an option there, Ben? Am I limited to a set of models, and what if I want to go off piste?
Yeah, so if you wanted to go more off-piste or have more control over which algorithm's being used, if you flick across to Snowflake notebooks, you can run your own Python, R, and SQL code All of your kind of favorite algorithms from the scikit-learn library are already available in Snowflake notebooks without any additional configuration. And because you're in Python land, you can bring your own custom models if you like as well. And the benefit of doing it that way is, although it's more technical, you've got unlimited control over training that model and the steps it's taking, and you can still take advantage over all of the MLOps capabilities within Snowflake. So when you push that model live, it behaves the exact same way as if Snowflake built that model for you. So you've got all of the monitoring, all of the logging, and the kind of live predictions endpoint that you can integrate as well.
So you still have that, although it's done it automatic, I still got that control. I can go back in and change it if I know how to do that. But if I don't know how to do that, it does it fairly accurately, doesn't it? So it's got a fairly good just out the box without doing anything. It's fairly good hit rate. So that's good. So if that is AutoML or the Snowflake ML, and we managed to show that in about 10 minutes. It's really simple and easy to use. Let's go into kind of the more generative. So, generative data is about that unstructured data. So your PDFs, your Word documents, and other documents that you've got in your organization. But there's still a large amount of data held within those. And the information that you'd kind of want out and be able to extract other than searching on SharePoint to look for that particular bit of information that you need to find. And Forrester says that over 2024, the amount of unstructured data across the world is probably going to is going to rise absolutely, but in fact double. But 80% of that doubling of that data is unstructured. So wouldn't it be great if you could pull this out? And the scenarios where I've seen this really take hold across our customer base is that knowledge management. It's a classic generative view of life. So how can I take all of that previous responses that we've done on a support desk, or we've got a lot of technical documents that we want to basically search, On the right-hand side, I think everyone's had an agent that they've interacted with, the chatbots, the virtual assistants, etc. But what if I could produce a chatbot just for our internal use case to look at our documents that we've got stored and has got some gold in there? How can I surface that really easily and simply? Okay, and Snowflake Cortex will do that for you. So what is Snowflake Cortex? What does it look like? Again, we've got that studio environment, which you see in the demo in a second. You've got the ability to look at the observability of what it's doing and why it's doing it. You've got that chat arena. So you've got the API way to actually talk to the Cortex engine itself. And you surface that using what a product called StreamNet. We'll show you that in the demo. But I think the big takeaway is the models at the bottom. So you've got access to SQL, you've got access to fine tune those models. But actually being able to choose your LLM is quite well, it's not unique, but the way you can choose your LLM is quite unique within the how quickly you can produce a generative model, deploy it, create a chatbot, and then switch out the LLMs. So, and if you don't know what LLM is, we'll show you that in a second. But ultimately, the Cortex environment allows you to create AI apps, allows your end users to chat or talk to your data, and use those top tier models to get to that information really quickly. Now, I'm going to get a little bit technical here, but it's worth knowing what the process is in Snowflake. So what does it essentially look like? So what we're going to see in the demo, and this is going to be pulled out in the demo, is essentially creating a Cortex model or application or chatbot. The way we do that is we take those files, and I've got a load of PDFs, we chunk that into what we call a table. We then embed that into what we call a database, so it's a vector database. And then we use hybrid retrieval mechanisms to ask questions. So if we ask a question, it goes in and essentially asks the LLM, so the science bit. And that essentially takes all of that historic data and gives you a contextual answer. And that's all wrapped around in these services. So in essence, we have SQL functions creating a table, storing it into a vector database, and then we use Streamlit, which is think of that as a website, a portal, to talk to the LLM, to talk to that LLM function like ChatGPT to give you that answer. So a little bit complicated, but if we follow that, we'll show you that in the demo. So into the demo then, because everyone wants to see this. So in order to, I want to basically deliver a chatbot that can answer some policy questions. So I'm inundated, and the HR are inundated with questions. And the management team, they're saying they spend a lot of time, especially when you start, just asking them answering simple questions. So what I've got is I've got Catalyst's real policy documents, and it's a subset of those. So expense policy documents, HR policy documents, that kind of thing. And I just want to create a chatbot. So I want to collate all those policy documents. I want to take those documents and store them into Snowflake, so I can access them in Snowflake. I'm then going to create a vector database. I'm going to create a web app, and then I'm going to test the bot using different LLMs. It sounds complicated, doesn't it? Not so much, and we'll see why in a second. So let me jump into the demo, and I'll show you how relatively easy this is. So into our application. So what we want is, first off, we need to look at what we call a stage. So we're looking at our documents. So I've got all of my 16 policy documents here. And you can see they're all PDFs, okay? And I've collated those, I've just downloaded them from SharePoint. They could be connected directly to SharePoint. You can use the pipelining ability and the connectivity of stages to connect directly to an Azure Blob or an AWS bucket, for example. And these then files would automatically update. But what I want to do here is I'm using a little bit of script here. And it looks complicated, but I can get this automatically, can't I, Ben? I can get this starting. We didn't go off and write this from scratch, did we? Where did we go off to get this?
You can, Lee, yeah. So this comes as one of the quick starts. It's on Snowflake's website. So again, we took this quick start. It maybe took 10 minutes or so just to modify it to fit our use case, and there was no additional code to write.
Oh, fantastic. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run that. And again, exactly the same concept as the predictive. It allows you control. So if you don't know what this is doing and you don't care what it's doing, you can just cut and paste it from the quick start and away it goes. But actually, your guys probably want to look at what it's doing. And essentially, you can see it's not that long. And ultimately, what it's doing is, if you're looking at this, it's creating a table for us. It's creating a brand new table in the database called chunks table to create that vector database. And exactly how it's doing that is, in this instance, I'm not bothered. I know you are bothered, Ben, and I think if you're a data scientist, you kind of want to take control, which you can if you want to. So that's finished. So that's took all of those 16 documents, converted all of that to text, and then created this brand new table, which let's have a look at that. It's created this chunks table here. So I can look at that preview and I can see it's got lots of information in there, thousands of rows. So let's see whether we can utilize that. So the way we utilize that is we need to surface that. We can talk to that model now because it is a deployed model using the APIs, but I want to test it before we hook it up to anything. In fact, let's just use a Streamlit app. So Streamlit is a technology that Snowflake's embedded directly into their platform, as we started at the beginning, which allows you to create web applications really, really simply. So I've already done one of these. Again, off the quick start, I can cut and paste this. It's called Harry the HR bot. Great name, Ben. I love that. And what it's done is essentially once it's loaded in a second or two, it's looking at all of the documents. You can see here it's got all of my documents in there. And I can start asking it some questions now. So really, really straightforward, just like you would in ChatGPT. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut and paste a couple of questions. So first question is, any employee, they should have probably asked this in the interview, how many holidays do I get per year? Okay, and it's going to answer the question from that. So I don't need to know which document to look at, which policy to look at. It's found that automatically. And it's even told me on the left-hand side, this contextual element there of which documents it's actually accessed and referred to. Then if I wanted to, I can click on that and open that document up. So really, really simple, straightforward to use. Don't need any training from that. But what if I wanted to ask a harder question? What is my normal wear? Can I come into work? So you know, I can get that. No, it's broken, like all good demos. Let's ask if I can wear flip-flops. Is this going to work? Is this going to break? Can I wear flip-flops? There we go. No, flip-flops are not allowed as they're considered too casual, as you would expect the answer. So I can ask any question from the policies. But if I go back to the first one, what's interesting is we said this at the beginning, how many holidays do I get as holiday? If I'm using one LLM, it will give me one answer. If I choose a different LLM, which I can do quite quickly on the fly, I'll change this to a llama question. You can see I get a slightly different answer. It's still correct. Both came back with 25, increasing 1 year. But you notice the context has slightly changed. The language has changed. It's shortened that down. And using the right LLM appropriate to your documents and for your use case is really important. So by having that ability to quickly change to multiple LLMs here is really, really useful as part of the platform. So, and then the next question everyone asks here, Ben, isn't it, is what about my data? Is my data going off into the internet and am I losing control of my data? Yeah, because this is a simple example, right? This is policy documents. It doesn't really matter if these get out into the ether, but if these were commercially sensitive to us, because they're really technical documents of how we maybe produce our product, I don't want that into the ether, Ben, do I? So how can I be safe with this? Is this going off into the internet?
No, so it's not going off. It's not going off and leaving your Snowflake account, and that's one of the main benefits of building generative AI solutions within Snowflake. So rather than integrating with kind of external hosted LLMs, which might have its own infosec challenges, all of the LLMs that are available within Snowflake are securely hosted by Snowflake. So when we're asking these questions and it's pulling back those relevant chunks from our documents, they're being sent to the LLM, but that's still within your Snowflake account. Whereas if you wanted to use OpenAI or something like that, an externally hosted LLM, that might present different infosec challenges, additional billing, etc.
Right. Okay. That's good to know. That's good to know. So let's just recap. So what we've done there, very, very simply, I collated the policy documents, I uploaded them. In fact, I already had them uploaded and stored into Snowflake. The script itself, which I just cut and paste from the Quick Starts website, was creating that vector database by chunking it. I then created a web app, and I used that web app to host the bot. And then I tested it, and I quickly changed the LLMs and got the different answers from the documents. You know, you can store pretty much unlimited amount of documents in that. So very, very simple example of 16 documents, but if you know we're working with customers that have got thousands of documents, tens of thousands of technical documents in order to free up that information. Okay, so we'll finish just by doing a quick summary of what you've seen today, and hopefully take this away. Please feel free to use the QR code on the bottom. This books a meeting with myself or Ben to know anything more about Snowflake, the platform, anything AI, or even if you would like to look and discuss a data strategy with the organization. Follow that QR code. But today we've seen Snowflake can provide those ML predictions for the data that you've already got stored in your Snowflake warehouse. If you haven't got that data stored in your Snowflake warehouse, it's extremely easy to get that information across into Snowflake. It's super simple and easy to set up and deploy. You have to be slightly technical, but if you know SQL, or if you've got someone who knows SQL, it's really simple. You don't have to be a data scientist to do this. But if you are a data scientist and you want to be able to hone those predictions, you can. And then on the generative side, you've got that control of which LLMs you're using, how you chunk it, so you can take a little bit more control. Again, if you just want to fire it as default, you can. And the big takeaway I think today is, you know, if you're already a Snowflake customer, you know, there's no additional infosec or purchasing needed on this one. So, you know, you're using an existing vendor. So if you want to start putting some ML, putting some generative over the top of your current data sets, you could probably start doing that today without having to jump through a load of hoops, an internal purchasing process. You just start using the credits in essence. And we mentioned the QR code at the bottom, but we can accelerate you into that, into the Snowflake program, either with you using Snowflake or AI. And quite happy to run a, a proof of concept. If that's of interest, please get in touch and follow the QR code. So finally, and we managed to do that in time, I think. So there's our QR codes for both myself and Ben. So follow those if you want to hook up on LinkedIn, and the top right for that meeting. We'll leave those on for the next few minutes while we ask any questions or answer any questions, shall I say. Ben, have we got any questions from the audience? Please say yes.
Yeah, so we've had a couple through, so we'll just run through them. So the first being, what options for model tuning are available in Snowflake?
Okay.
So with Snowflake, it does offer distributed hyperparameter optimization, which sounds very complicated. But behind the scenes, what that means is it's efficiently searching for those best hyperparameter combinations for your models, leveraging Snowflake's powerful compute. So rather than manually doing that as you would traditionally, Snowflake can take care of that for you. But you do still have full control with Snowflake notebooks, so you can integrate those into kind of your more traditional data science workflows and still leverage the power of Snowflake. In case that question was related to the Gen AI side as well, for LLMs in Cortex, you can fine-tune those large language models. So rather than doing a kind of retrieval augmented generation workflow, which is what Lee demoed today, you can actually retrain those LLMs on your own data set.
That's quite an advantage. Have we got another one? We've got
so the other questions we've had through, we've had one, are these tutorials available on demand, i.e. YouTube? I have a number of colleagues who are interested in watching this tutorial but weren't able to make the meeting. So I believe this webinar will be made available on YouTube. As we mentioned earlier as well, with the Snowflake Quick Start site, there's tons of end-to-end tutorials on there as well, with kind of boilerplate code templates that if you've got a Snowflake account, you can upload those into there and start playing with all of the ML and Gen AI capabilities straight away.
And in fact, we will be uploading this to our YouTube. And if you subscribe to this, you'll get a link to that, hopefully today or if not tomorrow. And yeah, if you just Google Quick Start, Snowflake Quick Starts, I know we've mentioned it 4 or 5 times, but it's a super site, and it really, really helps you go from knowing nothing about Snowflake and being an expert in Snowflake very, very well, extremely quick. It's one of the better training sites I've seen, with videos, with code patches, and cut and pastes, and yeah, with projects that can get you up and running, or your team up and running really quick.
We've just had another couple of questions through as well, Lee. So one being, what MLOps capabilities does Snowflake have? So we didn't demonstrate those today, but the kind of key capabilities that are included within Snowflake are the model registry. So that allows you to manage, version, and govern all of your ML models within Snowflake. And you also have a centralized Snowflake feature store available, which includes the kind of feature engineering capabilities of Snowflake and allows you to manage those model features across multiple models and which features are actually used for training those models.
Fabulous.
The final question we've had through is just, how many credits would you consume with a use case as demonstrated? So that's a difficult one to answer. So for the demo, we did up our compute considerably, and you are billed kind of per second for the compute. If you'd like to know more around the Snowflake billing side, if you get in touch with either myself or Lee, and we can take a look at your use case and give a rough estimate of how many credits would be consumed. But it is difficult to calculate for our demonstration, just given that we massively ramped up the resources.
Yeah, it is a credit-based process, and it's all about compute ultimately. So it depends on your data set, your size, how big your chunks are, whether you're using predictive, whether you want to do generative, and how much data and which algorithm you're using. It's all combinations of above. But what we can do is, and that's why we like to do, it's a very common question. We like to do a small POC so you can work through those questions and basically price it out, and understand what your estimated price is. It is a consumption model at the end of the day, but you need to be able to put a finger in the air at the very least of understanding what that's going to cost you. So Yeah, okay. Is that it, Ben? I think we've covered it all. But
Yeah, that's everything.
fantastic. Well, thank you for your time, guys, today. Appreciate it. This will be going onto YouTube. Do use those QR codes and organise some time. If you need to, just reach out to your account manager or us directly, and hopefully you'll join us for our next webinar next week. So we do have a webinar next Thursday covering our data strategy. So if your data strategy is something that you're interested in and how you treat data and use data within your organisation, and especially if you want to look at an AI policy in order to deliver AI techniques that you've just seen today, or just make sure that your use within AI within your organization is educated, then please reach out. But we'll be sending that invite for next Thursday, and we'll speak soon. Have a good day. Cheers all.